absolutely delighted to have John and Gabe Dilworth on our podcast. Welcome to the Forward One podcast.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Excited to be here today.
Grateful to have you.
Let's rock and roll. So, Josh.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. What do you guys do?
Well, I'll kick it off. We like to disclose that we're identical twin brothers. It freaks people out often. But I'm a developer. I build mostly high-end single-family homes in the West LA area. And my general contractor is my identical twin brother, Gabe. He does all the GC side of things of the business. So I moved out to LA in 2008, graduated college from Western Michigan University, and thought I'd come out to the big city in 2008 and work in real estate. Turns out that was not great timing.
Of course.
So I had a hard time finding employment right away, but eventually landed with an affordable housing developer and started building affordable housing for transitional age youth that emancipated out of the foster care system.
Wow. Very
rewarding type of job, and very impactful. But the pay, obviously, for a nonprofit is not quite there. Went on to go work for some high net worth families and doing kind of the investment side of real estate, and got kind of tired of working for the man, I guess, per se, and started doing some small lot subdivisions here in LA. So back in 2015, it was kind of a new building product for the area. It was kind of this urban infill development for lots that were zoned R3 but had single family homes on them yet and didn't quite pencil out for apartments. And so we jumped into small lot subdivision development, which entitlement wise is not an easy product type. And so eventually learned that single family homes is a way easier path from entitlement and construction. And started building homes for 5-6 years, and then I convinced my twin brother to move out to LA, and then eventually also convinced him to quit his corporate construction gig, and I built a pipeline of spec homes to support his startup GC, and now got a dozen or so employees. We self-perform stuff, and we've been building healthy homes here in LA, and
so when he was moving out and doing real estate, I was still in Michigan doing construction, really trade work level. And then I got a job with a construction management firm, and I traveled the country for a year doing industrial kind of food and beverage improvement projects for mainly Kellogg's. And then after a year of just traveling to a bunch of different states, I landed in Omaha, Nebraska, which is a wonderful town. I just never really realized how great it was until I lived there. And the world's largest steel factory is there. It's a 1 million square foot facility. And so I did that for 6 years as their lead construction manager. They had a capital improvement plan that really created full-time tradesmen, unionized tradesmen there that needed a lot of oversight. And really what kind of moved me out to California was that he kind of beat me to the chase with having kids. And so I was still single. He had gotten married. They had a baby right away. And I said, all right, you beat me to the chase. I guess I'm coming to you. And then switched to a construction management role with a property management firm. And I did that for 6 years. That's all right. It's not fun. It was the fun part of construction for me was really kind of single family homes. And that's what we grew up doing. And he said, hey, what if you, it's 2020, right? I think.
Yeah, it was about then.
We had a conversation about how frustrated I was with the lack of capital improvements with apartment owners, which totally makes sense because they just want people to pay them rent.
Yep.
And he said, well, what if I put a pipeline of spec homes together and you quit your job and you get licensed and start a general contracting company? And he focuses on the development side and I focus on the general contracting side. And that's really kind of what birthed our relationship professionally together.
How do you transition from, and I appreciate all that background for sure, how you got here is always interesting. How do you transition from, hey, I'm a spec home builder, my brother's going to be my builder. How do you transition from that into the healthy home space? Because that is what we're here to talk about for sure.
Well, we started building homes the old school way with hot mop showers and Tyvek waterproofing, and it was the tried and true way that every person's been doing it for 30 years. Why would we do it any differently? Mm-hmm. And my brother and I started going to trade shows. We go to the Vegas IBS every single year. We started really getting into influencers in the industry, like a lot of the contributors to the Build Show, Matt Reisinger. Those guys are very influential in the building space on high efficiency type building. I mean, they're building in extreme climates. But we really took some of their philosophy of what they're building and really, since we started working together during the pandemic, the whole indoor air quality thing was big.
Yep.
And so we really discovered that, I mean, this is nothing new, but the building science component of a single family home has always kind of been lacking, so there's really three pillars of a healthy home. There's indoor air quality, there's comfort, and there's VOC materials.
Yeah. Okay, so build tight,
ventilate right.
Build tight, ventilate right.
It's under air quality.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to know throughout this is how much of this stuff is comfort, how much of this stuff is sort of, wishful, we'd like it to be this way, and how much of this stuff is like what we were talking about before, like your house is killing you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, there's a spectrum on the whole side of things. We'll start with the indoor air quality, build tight, ventilate right. What does that mean? So for us, we use an exterior envelope it's a zip system. Hebrew Woods makes a plywood that is called zip sheathing. And so when you build a house with this type of plywood, or after the framing phase, not only are you waterproofed in, but you're typically airtight. And so
and quickly. You're dried in immediately during framing versus it's not another phase that comes in later on.
So now you're protected from the elements, right? So if it rains before the roofing gets installed, I don't have a framed house that's soggy, full of water. That's going to take a long time to dry out. So you got a tight envelope, and so now you are trapping all the air inside the house. Now you have to ventilate right when you build tight. If you don't, you will have consequences to that, mold growth and all kinds of stuff. So we install ERVs, usually 2 ERVs, energy recovery ventilation systems in each home. And what this is it's like the lungs of the house. It brings fresh air from outside, filters it through MERV 13 or HEPA filter, and then supplies the whole house with fresh air. At the same time, it's exhausting air through an exchange manifold. And so it's taking the stale air in your house and recovering the energy of the conditioned space that you have in your house, and changing the temperature of the air coming in and then going outside of your house. And so you've got filtered fresh air coming into all of your bedrooms, all of your living spaces, that also are balancing the moisture content within your home. And so that's part of the indoor air quality part of it. And then the second tier down on that is going to be your HVAC system.
Well, let me tell you why I think an ERV system in the house properly installed is probably the single most healthiest home feature that we talk about. And as you sleep in your bedrooms through the night, you're exhaling CO2, right? CO2 levels are not deadly harmful, but they are health hazardous. If they get above 2,500 ppm parts per million, then it's considered hazardous by OSHA. So, a lot of my previous work, we're working in containments, confined spaces. You have an air monitor that is monitoring the air quality in there. And if it alerts you, if you have something in 2,500 above that, we'll get an alarm. And the side effects from that aren't obviously deadly like carbon monoxide, but with carbon dioxide, if it's too high, normal room like we're in, nice open room, good HVAC system, we're probably sub 800, which is good. You start getting between 800 and 1,500. Now you're in this kind of like moderate, long-term exposure. You probably get dizziness, headaches, brain fog, fatigue. How many times do you sleep through the night and you wake up and you just feel a little like groggy? Most of the time for me. I live in a house that's an older construction and I'm slowly renovating it with these healthy home features. And we dove down this rabbit hole because my 4-year-old has eczema and we're like, what can we do to help this? And indoor air quality is so big. It is such a big effect on our health. And CO2 levels, if you have some kind of autoimmune disease or just need something a little extra, we all have different immune systems. If you're already like spending 8+ hours or whatever sleeping and you're in 1,600 or whatever, I have an air monitor next to my nightstand. I started measuring it. I've been measuring CO2 levels in my bedroom, sleeping with my wife, and we don't have a huge bedroom, but it gets between 1,500 and 1,600. That's a problem.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, if you took like an average home in LA, give us a sense of what that looks like as I'm thinking about my own home,
average would be what I would say my current house is. It's a 1970 construction. There's no insulation in the walls. It's a drafty home. And it's kind of typical situation where you have two people sleeping in a bed and breathing through the night. I try not to be a huge mouth breather at night, but it depends on what's going on, allergies and everything. So if we can figure out a way to keep our CO2 levels below 800 throughout the night, that would significantly increase how you feel when you wake up and throughout the day.
Okay. So a couple of questions on that. And number one, I know a lot of these things it's much more efficient to do this when you're building a house. You even referenced that because you're in an existing home. And so you're having to go back and retrofit some of these things. Obviously, much less expensive when you start the build. What does it cost for 2 ERV units? How many square feet before you need the second one? And how much does each one cost relative to, is that just an add-on because you have an HVAC anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. It's compared to an HVAC system, it's a small drop in the bucket. An ERV, like the Panasonic 100 CFM ERV system is $1,000. You can buy it on Amazon.
And that's just an additional thing. It's not replacing something else.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a separate system.
It's completely separate.
The analogy that I'd like to back up to and describe the different components of a healthy home is the ERV system's like the lungs to the home, right? So you're breathing in fresh air from outside and you're exhausting stale air from inside your lungs. The HVAC system is just a recirculation. So it's like the heart of the home. It's recirculating the air. And the filtration system you have on your HVAC system is like your liver. And so we talk a lot about MERV rated filters. So all the filters in your home are rated at a MERV rating. And so you typically would see a MERV 4 or 8 kind of a thing in a standard home. But if you take it up to a MERV 13, that will filter out bacteria and viruses. It's the same filtration system that the food and beverage industry uses, the medical industry uses to create clean spaces. And so those are kind of the components of the fresh air system. But to go back to the cost of an ERV, the system itself, you can supply 2 to 3 bedrooms and a living space with one ERV system, 100 CFMs. To give you an idea of what 100 CFM is, a typical bath fan is 50 to 80 CFM.
Wow.
And so but this is on all the time. It's 24/7. You can adjust it, depending on the quality of the air that's outside as well. but it's a system that's constantly pushing fresh air inside your home, and you can balance it too. So if you got an old home that you're retrofitting, I can positively pressure the home instead of negatively pressure, which means that it's still exhausting air, but it's positively pressuring more than exhausting. And it's pushing air out of all the cracks and components of the home, the leaky components of the house, rather than sucking the air in. We were just having dinner last night with Gabe's business coach, and we were talking about most homes in LA and across the country have an attic and a crawl space that's ventilated, right? And we were trying to, he said a stat, 30 to 50% of the air in your home comes from your attic and your crawl spaces.
Wow.
And so
that's scary.
So you think about what is going on in your crawl space.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you've got mold spores, you've got all kinds of allergens and
But you asked a good question on renovations and retrofitting, right?
I got the $1,000 a unit. Now I'm looking at my house. I'm probably going to need at least 2 units.
Let the general contractor give you the price, because that's not the real price.
No, that's right.
That's a cost that you're going to spend if you're going to buy that component on Amazon.
Right. And then you got to
get it delivered to your door. Now, you still have to have a guy install it, run electrical to it, and still duct it. There's a lot of ducting to a bath. It's essentially a fancy bath fan, only it's ducted like 10 times the amount of ducting, because you have ducts coming in and ducts going out.
So the cost of the product is
so it's going to be like, depending on how much it's ducted and a couple circumstances, like $5,000 to $8,000 all in is probably a good per ERV installation cost if you're retrofitting a house.
So now we're looking at 10 grand to put in too, which is basically what I need.
So, and then you can't just put one in if you're doing a retrofit renovation. I'm doing 3 renovations right now where I tell my client about this type of system and all of this information about these healthy home features, and they say, I want that. And so if I put an ERV in, it has to come along with a conditioned attic space. So traditionally a house is built with a ventilated attic, and that's where your vents are at the soffits, and they're coming out either the gable or the ridge vents or somewhere. And so there's airflow with that. And so all that insulation is at the ceiling of the room. And so what we do to retrofit the house is we would then remove all of that insulation and then spray foam with open cell spray foam the bottom of the roof deck. And I seal that condition from the outside. There's no outside air allowed to come in anymore. And now that becomes a conditioned attic space. So it's usually like within 10 degrees of your actual living space on temperature wise. And now your HVAC system and your ERV, all your ducting, all your stuff that's up in your typical attic is now in a conditioned space.
And to put this into context, what Gabe is saying essentially is that, okay, so you and I want to now have this sort of clean air system, but basically what Gabe is saying that we've got a poison room, okay? And that the poison room, the air is coming in the poison room, and then it's going to go through our fancy filter, and it's going to really condition it and make things a lot better. But to get the system the way it should really be running in a renovation, he's going to seal off, or he's going to pull out the poison. He's going to put the better insulation, and then he's going to seal the whole thing off so that the whole house ventilation is not even coming through that room. So now, you've remediated the poison room, and you're making sure that your air is not even coming in that way.
Yeah.
Did I do okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're controlling the air that comes in a very systematic way, right?
So that comes with some costs there too, right? So now I have to suck out all the old insulation, whether it's batted or blown in. There's a few thousand. Then I have to spray foam the bottom of the roof deck and probably do some exterior repairs for eliminating some of the ventilation openings. And so, you may have 5 to 10 grand there. So, I mean, it's really like if you were trying to retrofit the house, it's not just one thing, and one thing really affects another.
Yeah, it's a holistic system, right? Yeah.
I moved into a house right before the Woolsey fire hit, 2 months. And I'm from small town Michigan, and I'm just like, where did I move to?
Right.
And that was a crazy fire. So we were evacuated for 10 days. And luckily we had he had a spec house that I could move into.
Wow.
And we helped assemble furniture. So, and
that was their rent.
we didn't go. I mean, we were gone for 10 days. And when I came back to the house, all of the doors and windows were closed, but they were original 1970s, single pane glass, weather seals that were just junk or gone. And so there was like this V by the sliding glass door where wind was coming in and blowing ash in there. So the very first thing I did after I cleaned up and moved my family back in was I made my attic a conditioned attic space. Mm-hmm. And this also doubles as a very significant fire resistant feature for a house. Mm-hmm. And that's why we were just at the LA Build Expo yesterday and the day before, and we saw this guy walking around. He's a Palisades group of the community, and he's interested in building techniques and details and products that are fire resistant.
Yes.
And a lot of our healthy home features almost double as fire resistant features as well.
And that's because the foam that you're putting in as the insulation is fire retardant. Is that why?
Well, when you have a ventilated attic, a lot of those houses start in a fire by embers coming in the attic system. And when a fire starts in an attic and the fire department comes up, they're not going to save that structure. They're going to save the neighboring structures because an attic fire is essentially a lost cause.
Because the thing can fall in on the fireman.
Yeah.
And it's sucking oxygen and just heating like an oven.
Right.
Yeah.
In these vented attics.
So that feature, just sealing off that attic, makes that home much more.
Now you also want
fire resistant.
Other fire resistant,
of course,
on your envelope. So Class A building materials on your roof and your soffits and your siding. I mean, really, if you have a house that's typically out here, it's like stucco. You have an inch of stucco. That's a Class A rated. I mean, I could put a blowtorch on that. I mean, your next real kind of biggest area from a fire risk is your doors and windows, because if you have 100-mile-an-hour gust of winds like we did in the Palisades, I mean, you're not stopping a palm leaf branch from going through the big foyer window, right?
Yeah.
So I took that to one of our window, that kind of dilemma to one of our window manufacturers. We work with Weather Shield a lot and love their products. And he said, well, let me think about this. If my glass manufacturer were to give me tempered and laminated glass for all the windows and doors in the house, that would probably solve that problem. So now you have what's essentially like a car windshield on all your stuff.
Wow.
So it's essentially keeping that outside ember outside, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I've been through this. My house is guaranteed violates every rule that you could imagine. And one of the things that I have is I installed a very high quality HEPA filter, two of them, one's really big one, another pretty big one. I don't know what the CFM is, but it's pretty high. And I put that in my bedroom. Now, one of the things that it does is it does measure air quality. I always wonder how accurate it is. And then I have it at a high sensitivity. So it auto adjusts with the air quality. I find all sorts of weird stuff out. Like I have curtains, but the curtains are fairly new. And whenever it's not like the curtains are 100 years old or even 10 years old or 5 years old. And whenever I open the curtains, the HEPA filter goes crazy because there's all this stuff. It's not even like I pull the filter back and all this dust pours out. Like I pull the curtains back. Right. I don't see anything. Yeah. And my HEPA filter goes crazy. How much protection am I getting? Oh, does a HEPA filter filter out CO2?
No, there's nothing that filters out CO2. Your air purifier, that's great. That's a good thing to put in, but it's not going to supply oxygen in your
Correct.
room. You need oxygen, right?
Correct.
So you're going to get that from the outside coming in. And a lot of times people just open a door or window and they would just be fine. So, but you're also susceptible to letting in everything that's outside. I just had an interesting conversation with a mold expert at the Build Expo. And he tested a guy's house that was, I think, LA based. He had couple houses and an office, and he was feeling sick when he went to one house, and he's like, where is this coming from? Long story short, he tested all these places. The last place he tested was outside by his pool and his pool furniture. Every time he sat down in his cushion, this puff of dust had mold spores came up. And that was the reaction that this guy was getting it from.
How easy is it for me to test it?
It's a matter of just finding a mold specialist. And he told me I can just cut out a section from your HVAC system and and mail that to them. And they'll take a testing and figure out, because that's circulating the air in your whole house, right? So that's going to give you an idea of how much mold spore you got going on and dust levels and things like that.
So that's for the mold and dust. So like just even taking another step back, like as I think about my home, you got me thinking.
Of course,
we're all, give us what you would say is the recipe for someone who wants to like inspect their home, both with respect to air quality, with respect to mold. Like, what is a cost-effective plan to determine what the state of affairs is, and then obviously from there determine how we're gonna,
I mean, this all stemmed from my son's eczema really getting me down to that level of like mold spores. I had a homeopathic doctor that took samples of all things from my child and came back saying that there were some mold in the environment that was affecting his gut biome and the bacteria, and his reaction to all of that is eczema. And so my wife's freaking out and she's like, we need to get this house tested for mold. And it sounds like, okay, let's just hire a guy, come in and test. But I mean, I have more of a practical kind of look to it. Like, I know how these walls are made and what's inside of them. And it's really like, it's about mitigating all of these features in your home where moisture might be coming in. That's why our waterproofing details are a very significant feature of healthy homes with us, and making sure that anything down to like how the siding is going to get installed on your house has a way for that water to get out and drain. And there's the other saying that I always like to hear is, if it doesn't dry, it will die. Mm-hmm. So if you have a section of corner of your house that's getting hit by a water sprinkler, you may not think it's affecting your health, but that might be making that wall have a really hard time drying out. And then you're going to get mold and you're not going to see it. And it's right next to the playroom where your 4-year-old plays every single day. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, there's no way to tell that other than just like, make sure your house has areas that are mitigated right with water. Are you getting the fresh air in? Like, are there issues that you're living in?
But again, for someone like you, who is obviously well-educated, experienced in all this stuff, versus me and many others, it's what may seem obvious to you is not necessarily obvious to us. So, because as you're saying that, I don't know a lot of what's getting hit with water. I know we had a leak in the roof at one point, and that came down because we had some water stuff in the ceilings. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I want to start now and say, well, who do I call? What do I do to determine how my home is currently?
Well, the easiest thing I think you can start with is get a humidity sensor. Figure out what's the baseline for your humidity in the home, and then start from there. Your home should be 50, 60% roughly. I mean, you really don't want it to be too dry. You need a little bit of humidity and moisture in the air to be comfortable. That's part of the comfort side of things as well. Thankfully, we live in a really nice climate, so that's not a difficult thing to control here. But then they have moisture meters, which you can buy pretty cheaply. So if you think you've got moisture coming in the walls, you can take your moisture meter on the walls and, create a baseline for your house and what things are, and figure out which areas of your home have the most moisture inside the walls or the ceiling. And then it's an investigative type of inspection, really, is what you're trying to do.
So, and we'll drop into the show notes, a moisture thing. And one of the other things I want to say is that, I'm always conscientious about the audience, and we live in LA, you guys live in LA, and like, all the crazy, homeopathic doctor stuff. It's not that I believe in it, don't get me wrong. But some of this stuff, as I chatted with John originally about, was so like, was such an epiphany that like the hot mop thing where you're just like, it's great for sealing. It stops the leak. So builders love it, but the net effect every time you take a hot shower, heaven forbid you've got a steam shower, it's like, it's creating all this toxicity. So, and I appreciate us starting with this sort of clean environment, clean air piece to it. And, how much of this stuff is hocus pocus, or we won't even call it that, but like, stuff that we might want versus really the stuff that's killing you.
Well, that's a good lead into the next peer of a healthy home is VOCs, toxicity. So we talked quite a bit about hot mop systems. A hot mop system is a 500 degree tar that's put into a shower pan to give it waterproofing. And it's tried and true. It's been used for a long time. It's cheap. It's effective. Everybody uses it for some reason. But
we love it because we know it's not. If I'm a builder, I love it because guess what? I'm not getting the call that nobody is going, well, geez, I'm measuring the VOCs. It's now 4 years later. We're still getting VOCs, calling their builder. Never. No. 4 years later, when that sucker is leaking, and you've got a big structural problem, they're calling you going, what the heck happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the biggest issue that we found with hot mopping is that you can't even be inside the house when it's getting installed. It is so toxic.
You ever been behind one guy driving down the freeway that's a hot mopper?
Absolutely.
You want to get away from him, right?
I mean, old school. And I will say, as part of the not woo-woo program, you guys are from the Midwest. I'm from Pittsburgh, whether that's Midwest or we can argue. And Josh is from Philly. We're from the biggest, working class towns ever.
Yeah.
And yet there is this concept that I really believe, which is, there are aspects of your house that are killing you. And for my house, like, I just know I had the mold guy come in, like the super duper expert, and he cleared everything. But I have, for example, we talked about before, I have a space under my house that's wet all the time. And your brother's like, dude, if you got wet all the time under your house, you just have a breeding ground for mold. I don't want to be breathing mold all day and night.
No. And as a builder, I don't ever want to have a product that has moisture around the structure I'm tied to that building too. And like, that's my job to make sure that, we're the last two houses we built spec have basements in them. And we spent a lot of time on our waterproofing details to make sure that the drainage and the sump pumps and all the membranes that were installed per the manufacturers. Cause the last thing I want to do is have to fix some kind of water damage as a builder. Mm-hmm. And that's because that comes out of my pocketbook.
Yeah.
So,
and the water damage, by the way, can be prevented sometimes most cost effectively through these really toxic ways, like the hot mop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. High VOC glues and adhesives are very common to use. They're cost effective. Mm-hmm. But we spent a little bit more money on zero VOC glues when we're putting down a flooring material. We'll use a zero VOC glue adhesive. And there's a big difference between that and a high VOC glue on new flooring. When you move into your house, it will make you sick. Mm-hmm. There's a famous class action lawsuit against lumber liquidators in 2015. 60 Minutes did an episode on it. And they were importing this flooring material. I think it was a vinyl plank or some kind of plank flooring, and from China, and it was very high in formaldehyde. Mm-hmm. And formaldehyde it off gases, and it has high VOCs that will make you sick and give you headaches and carcinogens and all the bad stuff that we know about. And it got a lot of people sick. The hundreds of thousands of people got sick, and they filed bankruptcy because of it. And so that's a telling tale that the products that we're installing in our homes, if you're not conscientious about the types of cabinets that are being used, if you're using cabinets with that are particle board that have a ton of glues in them, that's why we use cabinets that have plywood and are kind of low VOC, MDF type stuff. Because the cabinets are off gassing like crazy too when you first install them. And so having, we spend a little bit more money and a little bit more research figuring out which products have low or no VOCs, but you can really tell the difference in a new construction home compared to a track builder that might be out there just building with the cheapest materials possible.
And so let me ask you this, government standard, and I'm sure it varies considerably per county, what does that look like? What is a standard? Let's just talk about LA, versus what you guys build for. Give us an order of magnitude or some common sense sort of barometer as to what that looks like versus what you build with.
So if we go into a house, and forget about LA for a minute, but we go into a house that somebody built, obviously, right? We're not building them ourselves. And if it's a new house, it's got to be built up to that new code. How much is the code covering these health issues?
There's not much in the code that really, our healthy home features that we put in, which really there's at least one or a couple things at every phase of construction of this home that we have. My brother and I post news articles about them, and we publish them to our websites. We have little social media clips that we talk about them as well. But code minimum is you could get away with just cardboard on the outside of places on a house that it doesn't need shear strength. And we're just not doing that. Most people aren't doing that. That's but again, that's code minimum. To get fresh air into your home as a code minimum, Title 24 requirement is a bath fan that's running 24/7. So it's typically in a laundry room, something like that. And it runs 24/7 at 50 to 80 CFM. Now you're pulling in all that fresh air is coming from all the nooks and crannies of a house. Open a door or a window. Now you're letting in pollen, dust, mold spores, whatever it is outside, pollution.
Also, as soon as you move into the house, you're turning that fan off.
Yeah, because it's a little noisy, but that's code minimum. The code, that's Title 24 code. And so our upgrade to that is an ERV. Right. And so our ERV, Jonathan kind of explained how it runs. We can install an ERV and not install a single bath fan in a house. So all the exhaust that we're pulling out, that stale air that we're pulling out of the house, only comes from the bathrooms. And it's not, so now you have constant air being pulled out of these moisture rooms, essentially, and keeps the moisture down in there. And that runs through that exchange core and conditioning there.
So basically code minimum does
nothing. Right. That's the short answer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I could go on waterproofing details and all kinds of things that we upgrade. And not only from a healthy home standpoint, but just from a liability as a general contractor too.
So let me ask you one other question though. The code minimum, that's for new build. How about for older homes, and again, I know every area in the country has different, age of standard home depending on the neighborhood, but let's take a home that's built, I don't know, I live in a home, an old Spanish home that was probably, I think, built in the 30s or 40s. What does that look like if it hasn't, and I guess what are the standard ways that it gets updated along the way, if any? Forgive my ignorance, maybe none. I don't even know. And then so what does that translate into today relative to a new build at code minimum?
Yeah, it's a can of worms to say it there's not a direct answer there.
Okay.
I have a remodel in Santa Monica that is an old, small, single story that somebody built an addition off to the side and then the back, and then somebody put a second story on top of it. It's on a crawl space with a little California basement. And so over the years, people have done so many different things to it. And now I'm doing a significant remodel. And as I'm educating the client, they're saying, I want the ERV system. I want the conditioned attic space. I want the conditioned crawl space. And so we're putting all these things in there. And what I would say, if you're going through that as a homeowner, you're going to do a remodel or a new construction, it really takes to what do you think is important to you? Do the research and then find a builder that understands what you're talking about.
Okay, so plus minus, there's always this plus minus. And that is, for example, we had this conversation before. I know, I can tell you that even expensive building materials like very expensive, very nice flooring. When I was talking to my builder, 10 years, 15 years ago, when I did my major remodel, they were recommending what is called engineered flooring. So it's not a plank. So I'm like, I want the nice plank floors. Like, yeah, but over time it's going to warp. It's going to, use the engineered floor. Now what the engineered floor is, and you guys correct me, but it's much higher end, but they're still using these adhesives to stick it together. And one of the things that I required without knowing much about it was just to say, hey, this has got to be engineered floor in the US. Now, interesting, when the boxes showed up, it said right on the outside of the box, assembled in China, which is exactly. So the flooring was very high end. It was, I think, Ipe. So it's this sort of Brazilian walnut or whatever it is, very expensive. And that darn stuff, it was, harvested in Brazil. It was sent to China for them to engineer the wood. And I'm just looking at these boxes and I'm like, okay, well, some of the floor's down already. The rest of it's sitting in boxes. Like, get these boxes out and rip that floor up,
Yeah, because you really don't know. I mean, there's so much that comes from China that's unregulated, and they just they find a loophole, and nobody's paying attention here or there, and
they'll slap whatever sticker they need to on it. There's no real regulation going on there with internationally sourced materials, unfortunately. So we truly believe you can build a home that's made in America. There's enough suppliers and manufacturers here in America that we build everything mostly out of wood, and we have some of the best wood suppliers from Canada to, Idaho, all these areas that are full of wood. We can make a lot of our materials here domestically. And so if you're more conscientious about where it's being sourced and sure about that, I think you can get a better product in your home.
So we know the code's not helping us. Okay. That's fine. We got to live with that. But can we trust? So there's just a higher level of trust in what if it's manufactured wood in the US? Are they still not using high VOC? Because they sell high VOC paint down at the paint store. They sell all sorts of stuff in.
Yeah.
around.
I mean, they have a little more regulation with them, and then they'll have some probably third party laboratory testing that they would probably use as marketing to show that they have like a low to no VOC off-gassing type of product that you want to look for that while you're looking for your types of finishes like hardwood flooring.
And I think one of the challenges too is we're so interested in this. I'm so interested in this. Like, you said there's probably, there are all these different things. I forget whether it was like 13 of the bigger things. We could do a whole episode on each thing, and we would go down that bunny trail, for sure. Maybe just because, Gabe, you said that there's stuff you do in each layer of the build.
Yeah.
How about just give us a list, like just list out those things, and we're going to deal with a new build. Oh, one of the things I was going to say was when I had this conversation with your brother, and I'm like, geez, well, now I bought this new house I did a whole episode on creating wealth because I bought a lousy flip. Okay. And I can guarantee you that stuff is all bad. Okay. So then I have a conversation with your brother. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? What? And I'm like, well, how long is this, the floor's outgas for how long? He's like, oh, the floors can outgas for 2 to 3 years. I'm like, all right, well, it's already been 3 years.
Sure.
So I'm mostly good on the floors. Hot mop, as I had asked you before, that could outgas for 10 years. So now I got that issue to deal with. But so in an old house, for example, all the stuff that was going to off gas is probably already off gassed. Now, there's a lot of other things. You could have mold. You could have, definitely the whole stuff. Yeah. There's some sort of a trade-off. So let's start with new build and tell us on a new build, what are the things that you're doing? What are the things that you're doing from scratch?
I mean, I can go through every phase of construction and tell you a healthy home construction detail that my brother and I have really kind of honed in on. That's kind of what you're after there?
Yeah, let's do it. Just so we have a laundry list. Yeah.
It starts with foundation, right? So our foundation has to go in. I would say the biggest healthy feature construction detail on a foundation is installing an insulated slab. So that means that there's rigid insulation underneath the slab of the house. And so instead of that concrete constantly trying to get to 60-ish degrees because that's the ground temperature, you've now separated it with rigid foam insulation. And now that concrete slab that you're walking across is going to live at the same temperature as the interior of your home. Mm-hmm. So, from a comfort standpoint, that's a comfort, healthy home feature.
Also energy efficiency.
Efficiency. Yeah.
All the healthy home stuff doubles as high efficiency, high performance homes too, on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just granted that that's going to be an efficient, high performance system.
Also, on each of these things that you're going to tell me about the healthy home thing, I think maybe just to know how common or uncommon is it to do. So I'm guessing it's pretty uncommon.
Here in the Southern California, it is more uncommon because we can have people that live outside year round, obviously, that just do well. So harsher climates have more of these details that are more standard to them. I mean, growing up in Michigan, we had insulated foundation walls and slabs because it
otherwise
we have freeze. I think it was 48 inches was like our freeze kind of level that you had to get below for footings. So I mean, it's really climate specific on what might be more kind of standard there.
Okay.
I mean, we're taking a lot of, I'll get to HVAC point, but like a lot of these ways that we built in Michigan, we're taking out here, and I've noticed it's like interesting that they don't build the same out here that we did.
Of course not.
And so we're kind of taking a lot of these ideas that we've been used to. We're like, well, that's a standard thing, and we can really make it a healthy feature here. So foundation then runs into framing, right?
Well, hold on. Before you get into the foundation, you need a vapor barrier underneath your slab. And
vapor barrier.
That's
a code minimum though. Yeah.
That's a code minimum. It's typical, but it's not always installed right. You need a thick mill vapor barrier, not just a 2, 3, 4 millimeter, a 10 plus millimeter vapor barrier underneath the concrete. So before they pour, they're pouring directly onto this piece, and it's all taped, properly sealed.
Yeah.
And most of the time they just put it down there, and it's got all kinds of cracks in it and cuts, and all the penetrations aren't taped around.
So you're sealing it for a few reasons. It's like just not only vapor, but like termites and bugs. A lot of them will come up through the ground, and then they'll come through a crack in your foundation. And if they're like that vapor barrier, if it's installed really well and you're sealing all the plumbing lines and whatever's coming through the slab, then you're making it so it's really sealed up. So you're keeping all the stuff that lives in the ground out of your house.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that's a good point with that.
Now you're going vertical.
So now we're going vertical. We're going to install some framing. The very first piece of framing that goes on the house is a healthy home feature. So it's typically a piece of treated wood. It's called a mud sill or sill plate. And that's the piece of wood that is attached, usually mechanically, to the foundation of the house. And in the Midwest, it was standard to put a gasket there, just a foam gasket. Here, my framer's never heard of it before I asked him to start putting it down.
Wow.
And he's like, where do I even get that stuff at? And I was like, dude, it's on the shelf at Home Depot.
Right. In fact, we had such a hard time with it. We had to have our guys step in and install that foam gasket on the sill plate, because they were just like, my guys don't know how to do that. Right. And it's not complicated, but you just ask them to do something new.
Yeah.
So we use a fluid applied waterproofing on different areas of the house, and that part where the foundation and the wood framing meet, I mean, those are two very different construction materials. And the foundation or the stem wall that sits on it's never flat, perfectly flat. So like you have all these gaps. I mean, it is like a air gap, bug intrusion, path highway for just so we also put down a layer of caulking, a bead of caulking, then your sill plate gasket, and then another layer of caulking on top of that, and then your sill plate, and that gets bolted down. And then after the plywood gets installed on the outside, we have 3 inches above the framing and 3 inches below the foundation of that fluid applied. So we're really trying to bulletproof that, because it's the biggest difference in construction materials you're going to have on the outside of your house, right where bugs come in, moisture loves to wick up, all that kind of stuff. So that's like a significant healthy home feature that's really not that big of a deal. And it's done really commonly in other places.
Yep. But not here.
But not here.
And it's not a big deal when you're building the house.
Yep.
You know, that's the sort of thing. Okay, so we're going to put one extra layer of material in there. You know, it's got to be cost super minimal.
Yeah.
And if it's not done, there's no, it seems like there's no going back.
Yeah, it's real hard to seal up those little areas after the fact. And like Gabe said, it's the biggest source of bug intrusion and air leakage in a house. So sealing those up.
And then once we get framed up, now we're putting windows and doors in. The waterproofing matters. So we really kind of take that waterproofing up another level. I use a fluid applied by Tremco. It's their caulk that essentially sticks to just about everything that's on the list. And it comes in a sausage tube, and we have special caulk guns that we go through, and we just basically overdo it on our waterproofing on, a detail like I just mentioned around doors and windows. We put pans in underneath, like stainless steel pans underneath all the doors as well. And again, it's just like we need to get that water away from the house. If it comes in there, give it a place to go and run down and get outside.
A standard detail you would see on a new construction home, just driving around the city, is called Moist Stop. And it's this white kind of Tyvek type of material that goes on the side of the windows and on the top. And that's it. That's typically what they do. So there's nothing airtight about that window sealing technique.
Yeah, it passes inspection.
Yeah, that's how you pass
Oh, there you
inspection.
go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's waterproofing, but it's not airtight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like the framing details too, like on a window sill, the actual frame, we make sure that bottom part is slightly beveled down. And so again, it's all about if moisture does get in, how do you get it out? And so, cause you're building a really tight envelope. So if moisture comes in, it's you don't want to trap it.
Yep.
And I have to say, going for a higher level caulk and then adding more of it, it still has to be so de minimis in terms of cost.
Yeah, it's not much. I
Even
mean, a
labor.
tube of
It's a drop in
caulk
the
is
bucket.
still $10 to $15, and that's like the large sausage quantity of it. So, I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars with that level of waterproofing on a house.
Yep.
For the whole thing.
For the whole thing. I mean, let's just assume we're talking about a slab on grade, 2-story traditional attic that's like 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. You know, there's all kinds of designs out there where you have to get creative to make a lot of these details still work with conditioned attics with a house that doesn't have an attic kind of thing.
And so all the waterproofing for that house, in addition to what would normally be done, because they're already doing something, the additional cost for that 4,000 square foot house that you described is?
I would say, I'm probably spending 4 to 5 just in the waterproofing materials. So just maybe double that.
Okay.
So let's just call it 10 grand
for labor and time.
And all the
10
actual
grand
waterproofing.
It takes
addition?
longer to install those. Yeah. But we're also using,
you got to take away what it would have cost for the other. So like maybe $5,000 addition.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
it's not much. We're also using zip sheething and Advantech subfloors, both of which are made by Hebrew Woods. And they are a moisture resistant waterproof OSB. And so you think about a regular commodity OSB. If it gets wet, I don't know if you've ever seen
We
a
don't
piece
even
of
know what
OSB.
OSB is.
That's what I was gonna.
It's something
Oscillated, strangulated board.
Yeah, it's basically a bunch of wood chips that are put together and then with a bunch of resin and then compressed and glued. And it's an alternative to plywood.
Okay.
But you'll see it as sheeting on the outside of a home. And so
It's plywood and OSB. Like zip sheeting is technically OSB, but it comes with a waterproofing membrane, like impregnated on one side of it. So it's like you can't even peel it off.
Yeah.
It's part of the manufacturing process.
And they have this proprietary resin that makes the OSB waterproof. They have a lifetime warranty on the water resistance of your flooring. So let's say you're framing a house and it rains and you don't have the roof on yet. And so this actually happened to my home when I was framing my home for my family.
Yeah.
And so your house gets full of water everywhere, and you got to dry it out. And a commodity OSB off the shelf would expand like a sponge. And what happens after once you go to finish it, you got to pull all your nails out, you got to sand down all your seams, and then you got to re-nail it all. So it's a ton of labor. And then now I've got all this extra moisture and expansion and contraction going on in my wood framed home. With Advantech subfloors, none of that stuff happens. It just, it doesn't expand, doesn't contract. And it's a little bit more. So that material cost is something that we value because it protects the product for the life of it. And during the lifetime of the house, it's more moisture resistant than
But it's
than
just
other
double the
products.
price of the extra plywood. So like,
Yeah.
it doesn't double the price of the 2x4s or any of the dimensional lumber. It's just, all right, if I had
A sheet of
$2,500 or $5,500 in plywood, I'm spending $10,000 in plywood now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
And the other thing too is, so the whole waterproofing thing, because it was good we caught that one adjustment, because you said 10 grand, but then you're like, well, if they have to do it anyway, if they have to do it to code for a new build,
Yeah.
it's not addition to, it's in lieu of, right?
Yeah.
they're spending 5 grand,
Yeah.
and we're going to spend 10. That's only an extra $5,000 to have really waterproof that part. Now you're talking about this subfloor, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
it's a subfloor material.
Mhm.
Typically also you'll see 3/4 inch subfloor is the standard code minimum. We bump it up to 1.25
Inch and an eighth.
inch and an eighth. I keep saying that, but inch and an eighth. I mean, there's a big difference in a 1/2 inch of subfloor. You feel it in the bounciness of the home.
Probably soundproof.
Soundproofing.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're in an earthquake prone zone. So like any kind of additional structural features you can add to the home. And the cost to go from 3/4 inch to 1.125 it's nominal. It's nothing. And then the cost to go from regular OSB to Advantech, it's also nominal as well. So why aren't builders using it? And it is really, at the end of the day, you're spending, let's call it all in for a new construction home where you're spending $1 million on all the materials. I'd say you're sub $100,000 on all of these features, and we're talking about ERVs. We haven't even talked about comfort yet.
Yeah, so you're talking less than 10%.
HVAC. Yeah.
But again, that's in $1 million build
Right.
out here in California.
Right.
So again, we're a national podcast. The average home price, let's say nationwide, is about $550,000. And when you got the average, there's going to be as many homes that cost under that as cost over that. So
is that I assume that less than 10% rule.
no, I wouldn't think so, because you got the same square footage of the house. You're still a 4,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
So it's going to be way more than 10%. But even in drilling down on this, there's just some little things that there's still a low hanging fruit. Okay. So
we left off at framing.
Yep.
Right now we get into MEPs, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. From the mechanical side, we've kind of already touched on that. That's the energy recovery ventilator, separate system from my heating and cooling HVAC system. So the ducting is important on how we lay that out. Not only is it just like a system that's healthy to install with the ERV, but how it's ducted. So one of the things that we came back from the Midwest on how HVACs are ducted in a house, here, there's typically 1 or 2 returns. And then you get this like 1-inch pleated filter that's either in the wall or in the ceiling that you like open a couple clips and pull it out. And that's how you replace your filter. So in the Midwest, what we would have is all of those returns, instead of it being just 1 in the hallway or wherever, there'd be 1 in every single room. And so that HVAC system is pulling return air, cold air, from all of the whole house. And then it's supplying the air to equally the same parts that's returning the air to. So you kind of have this balanced system. So it kind of coincides with comfort there, but it also makes it so you're like recycling that air through, like you don't have a positively pressurized bedroom because you're sucking air only from the hallway. And then all of a sudden the HVAC turns on and a door slams shut or something like that. So because we have a supply and return in every bedroom now, we also have a supply of fresh air from the ERV from a separate system now. And so that return side from my HVAC, if you're following me, is located next to my supply to my ERV. So my ERV is constantly 24/7 producing fresh air into that bedroom. And my HVAC turns on and off based on a thermostat. And so when it turns on, if that fresh air is located next to the cold air return, when it kicks on, that HVAC now is going to suck in that fresh air, condition it, spread it through the rest of the house. And so now you have this kind of like balance of not only just like temperature, but air quality in the house too. And so that's why it kind of has to coincide. And it's like, there's not a standard detail. There's a lot of debate on how the ERV is installed, whether it's tied into the HVAC system or ducted separately and where the ducts go. We kind of have what makes sense to us after we've talked about it so much. And that's kind of what makes the most sense to us. And I think that how it's ducted is a significant healthy home feature with
and one of the questions that I had when I first met with John was like, why isn't everybody doing this? Especially like some of these things are so low cost relative, like you're building a new house. So we're going to throw in 2 ERVs. Well, you don't have to pay for all the ducting because you're already going to put ducting in anyway. Maybe it's a little more, whatever, but it's de minimis for this whole house thing. And why wouldn't everybody use that? And the answer that I have sitting with you guys now is this is stuff, number one, the consumer does not know about.
I was just saying, it's just lack of awareness.
So they're not
a new system. It's not newly invented. It's been around for a couple decades.
Yeah. And so the consumer's not griping for it. All builders are facing, increasing costs and things take longer. It's the old saw of like it took twice as long, costs twice as much. Maybe it's not that bad, but you're not going to start adding things that the consumer doesn't even ask for. So that's how this stuff just gets totally. And part of what we want to do, and I know it's part of your collective vision, because you're not going to build every house in America. So if you can get more and more people educated on this, then more and more people will say, hey, why? I mean, I hate to give people, again, national podcast, I hate to give people such sticker shock. I was looking at a $10 million home for a buyer that I have, and the construction quality, because it's in a phenomenal area, right? Beautiful part of town near the ocean. Things are so expensive. I mean, they're paying $4 to $5 million for the dirt. So they've got to build something and sell it. And they're building a lot of homes. They're getting a lot of the economies. They're not doing any of this stuff. And that's in a $10 million house.
They're still hot mopping their showers.
And my client has real concerns about health, as do many people, but has no awareness of this. And that's why, when I met with your brother, I was like, your house is killing you. And that's just what kept running through my head. $10 million brand new build. Your house is killing you.
Yeah, it's gaining popularity. I think to answer your question, why is this not really popular? I think you're right. It's lack of awareness. And that's primarily why we have building codes. Like back in the 40s and the 50s, when most of LA was built out, there was barely a building code. There was, forget about structural engineering and architecture. It was the basics of everything. And it was built as cost effective as possible. Most people building homes in America are building them as cheap as they possibly can. And then they're selling them. And then they're resold, and really they're inspected to functionality, not really to health. And so, but the code is getting stricter and stricter. I mean, you go to Texas and they're using blower door tests on their homes, and they have to
say that again. They're using
blower door tests.
Okay, so that's to test how tight the envelope is.
So they have to build tight and ventilate right, because they're in a climate they get snow, and then they also have 100% humidity, and it's super hot. So they have to build in these high efficiency conditions. And so they're building for that reason because of climate. Now we're building for that reason, not because of climate, but because of health. It's the same concept that the food and beverage industry builds, the medical industry builds. And we're taking that, or this office building, for example, you have an ERV system because you can't open these windows. So there's a system that's bringing fresh air into this building and filtering it.
So it's called the economizer on a commercial building, usually a package unit system.
Yeah.
My background has replaced a lot of those, and you get economizers that do and don't work, but essentially it tries to bring in cold, fresh air in the morning so your HVAC system it's not working as hard.
For the record, our landlord is the Manny brothers, and we have a lot of locations and a lot of landlords, and these guys actually care. So I'm sure we're doing just fine in here, and you'd be surprised with the other landlords.
It feels right in here.
There you go. I like it.
I feel the airflow, and
Yeah.
Next time we'll bring our CO2 sensor.
I definitely think it's
Come to my house.
The lack of education. I'm speaking of myself, who's a big health and fitness person. I'm thinking like,
you don't know
what's going
anything.
on in my home? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
for some reason, it's the last place people think about. I don't know why, but it's the last. You spend all your time at home, sleeping, eating, hanging out, and it's the last place you think about that's hurting you.
Have we hit all the things?
Well, one of the things I'd like to talk a little bit more is the HVAC comfort. So there's a lot of, you walk into a house and does it have central air? Yes. Okay, great. Next question. They move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
But there's about a half a dozen or so different types of HVAC system out there. Our preferred one that we like is a heat pump system. So it's an all electric heat pump system that's using a refrigerant, and it's got a pump. And typically you'll have on a heat pump system, people talk about it as mini splits as well. And you have different types of heads that you can put on a mini split. We'll use a ducted mini split head. And so what's nice about those is they're small, and you can have multiple zones in a house that are connected to one condenser outside. And so it's a very efficient way to cool and heat a home. And creates the maximum amount of comfort. So like my master suite will have its own head unit and zone that's hidden maybe in the ceiling of the master and closet. And then it's ducted, so it doesn't look like, a wall mounted kind of thing. And then they also, like in the basement of our house where ducting is very difficult to put in, we have a cassette version that sits in the ceiling joists in between. So those types of systems, I think, compared to your typical spec builder who's putting in a forced air FAU unit that is gas powered, basically, those systems are pretty uncomfortable when they're on. It's when the heat's on, it's blasting 90+ degree heat, and it's not the fan is on full blast because it can't be variable on a system like that. And so with these heat pump systems, you can make it variable, so you can adjust the comfort level on what's going on in each room. And I think that's really like to me, comfort in your home while you're sitting on the couch watching TV and the air conditioning cranks on or the heater cranks on, and not to have to like move. I've lived in homes before in the past where like the heater's on and I'm like, I can't sit in this seat.
Yeah,
anymore.
it's on or off. There's no, like, to your point, no variability. It's like all in or not at all.
And it just ruins whatever it is that you're doing, reading or watching a movie or something.
Yeah.
So
my house is hot. I turn the air on. It's like ice cold air blowing on me. I turn the thing off. The house still isn't cooled to where I want it to be.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like the last component that I wouldn't put it as high as indoor air quality, but to me, like that's what kind of like is the encompassing component of a healthy home.
Yeah. There's a few other finishes. Site drainage is obviously very important that sometimes gets missed. How you get in the water away from the house. That's at the end of the day, like you don't want water next to your house.
Yep.
So site drainage is a very important thing, like ducting your downspouts. If you don't have gutters on your house already, and there's not gutters that are going to downspouts that are going to a drainage pipe that goes somewhere, at least to the street or some kind of drainage field, that is probably another, and it's inexpensive. That's a very significant,
my own home.
Inexpensive
all the time. I'm seeing this little pool come from the gutters, but it's
probably why your crawl space is wet.
You know what?
It also explains his behavior. I mean,
With the brain fog all the time. And I will say this to you, I said to John, like, well, we're going to do a fun sort of business consult exchange, it's kind of thing. I'm like, you know what, do it at my house. So like you and your brother can walk. He said, so you could walk around. I said, well, we got to have my brother there to walk around and check it out. Now, I think actually we should do that at the coffee shop.
Okay.
Because everything that you're mentioning, all the things you're talking about, I'm doing what Josh is doing. I'm just thinking about my house.
Yeah,
sure. It's just like, it's
for
a
our
nightmare.
audience, it's resonating significantly. I hope.
Yeah.
Health is critical and comfort. Like our homes are where we live, 50% of our lives. I don't know how we don't take that more seriously. Myself at the top of the list, as it's definitely making me think about what I'm going to do about this.
You take it all the way back to to something we're not talking about, but you take it all the way back to a mattress and you think, well, if you calculated the number of years that you spent on that mattress, you would not go to the mattress discounters. That the least amount of money to pay that's not a good idea given that.
Yeah, that's right.
The outgassing that a mattress does is insane. All this stuff.
And it gets back even like medicine, like which in certain ways this is like be preventative, not, reactionary, right? Mm-hmm. Be proactive, not only to live a comfortable life for your own health first and foremost.
And one of the things I definitely want to hear what you have to say, John. One of the things I honestly think we're going to have to do is go through this episode, really cut it into really digestible. And I think what we'll do is we'll call this the new home episode, because we didn't get a chance to get into, because Josh and I, we're worried about our houses,
right? Sure.
And our audience, we worry about their houses. So we want to talk renovation. Yeah. I'm glad we did this whole thing from ground up, there, and then we'll
then I want to talk about making sure you come over to my house and like a look at it, or someone else.
I was kidding about the coffee shop. Right. I definitely want you guys to come over and take a look. I'm just I don't need to worry about anticipating bad news, because there will be bad news.
Like I just even think of my son sneezing and doing it, and my wife's always like, "Yeah, there's mold," and I'm just like, "Get out of it," whatever. Like,
I had the same reaction.
Right now,
same reaction.
Thinking about it quite a bit differently.
Yeah.
Well, we spend so much time and money on our homes, and oftentimes our homes are our number one source of wealth, right? Mm-hmm. And so what is your wealth without your health?
Yep. And your wealth is not just your financial wealth, it's your quality of life.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
There was like maybe a few other small items we didn't touch on. The last one I would say is fireplaces. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many people want a fireplace still. I want that look. I want that feeling. I want something that just like, gives me that romantic thing. It is so bad for you. It is the worst thing that you could put in your house, is to have a wood burning fireplace. Mm-hmm. Not only is it inefficient as hell, it's not going to heat. It's going to heat around that room and then starve the other rooms. But now you have like carbon monoxide, smoke. If it's gas, I mean, there's so many people.
I gotta say one thing. Sorry. The one good thing about my house is we have an old school fireplace that was sealed off. So the look is there, and we don't have the fireplace.
I did the same thing in my house. Right. Yeah.
That's actually one shot up for me, and the rest is not good.
So I want a fireplace. Now I already know, wood burning. First of all, guess what? I don't want to go outside and get wood or buy wood or whatever. So you don't have to worry about me with the wood. But now you got these like fake logs that now they're doing a pretty good job with, and we're going to have the gas. That's a disaster.
It is. Yeah. I mean, you're still burning a fossil fuel in your home, right? So it is not doing what we all want it to do. What it used to do in the very beginning was that's what our heat source that we lived on, right? And now we just want it because it looks cool. So they're doing some okay jobs with some non-fossil fuel options with electric.
What about alcohol? You've got the alcohol.
I mean, now you're going to have to, it's just more of like a pain in the butt to make sure that it's filled up. And
what I did in my house, new construction home we just finished, is we have a water vapor fireplace. and it gives all the same effects as what a fireplace does. And the kids can play with it. They can run their fingers through it. And it's a really cool, it's a conversation piece. It brings comfort from a visual standpoint as well, because it's got cool lights that it shines up to.
It's
it looks
neat.
like a real I you hook it up to like a little water spigot that, it's kind of like a water hose for.
I gotta see it to believe it. I'm not going to call BS. I'm going to call seek to understand. I want to call BS. And one of the fun things that I'll make a note for our producer to do is to get a YouTube video of the water vapor fireplace. Because when I go into a house and I see like the weird, like fake fireplace, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So we're going to trust that this water vapor thing.
I'll have you over to my house. I'll show it to you.
All right.
Yeah. My oldest daughter, she's my business administrator for the company here. And she just sent me a video of a water vapor fireplace in Germany at a hotel that she's staying at. And she's like, I'm still not convinced.
So sometimes they look cool, and I'm gonna reserve judgment. I'm gonna look at the YouTube. I'll come look at it in person. And so, I just want to thank you guys. I'm not surprised that, this is going to end up being, a 2-episode deal. And then I think what we'll do is have you come back and talk renovation. House is already built. Now what? With some different scenarios. Every renovation is going to be different. Some of them are going to have different types of things, but what are the areas that we look at where we can make some significant impacts without, that little sealant at where the joist meets the foundation wasn't done. Very inexpensive to do it up front. We're just going to go forget it. Right? Because we're not going to tear the house apart, and maybe you guys will have a different solution. But we'll save that for the next episode.
I'll say this to you,
Yeah.
and I speak from me, and I can't believe I'm alone, is I just think coming back to the lack of awareness and therefore the tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hey, it's been a pleasure. I know that we've got a lot more to talk about, and I sure hope that this, furthers your own personal cause. Obviously bring awareness to you guys. We'll put all your socials and everything in the show notes, and contact these guys.
Yeah. And then and obviously maybe have you come and speak to some of our offices and our agents, because that's what we're in the business of, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of, again, opportunity.
Educating real estate agents and buyers is a big component to this.
Yeah.
So thanks for having us on.
Thank you very
Pleasure,
much.
guys. Amazing. Love your passion as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
And I
Pleasure.
will say that for our audience of this podcast, which is realtors, we're always looking for ways to distinguish ourselves as being an information source. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about. So you're, a realtor that really digs into this, takes this as a foundation, as a starting point, and then maybe follows you guys on social, start learning more and more about this, can really
distinguish themselves and create real value for their clients.
I mean, think about it. I'm running around with a $10 million buyer. They're very health conscious, and I don't care what realtor they would have picked other than me. And people are great. Believe me, they're going to have all sorts of great skills. This is how you want to decorate or whatever. And nobody is telling them this stuff.
Yep.
So this is a big advantage.
Big advantage.
Really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.